Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and I am so excited that I'm finally doing an episode about this, because if you have been paying attention to the wellness space lately, the health space, the medical space lately, you cannot scroll, watch, listen to any kind of media content without hearing about GLP-1 medications. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, because I really just cannot wait to get into it. And if you think this is going to be an episode about me slamming GLP-1 medications, that is not what this episode is going to be about, actually. We are going to be talking about some more nuanced themes as it relates to GLP-1s, because they are marketed as game changers, right? They are marketed as the magic pill for appetite regulation and for weight loss. And for many women, they truly do work, right? We say this all the time here, right? Both things can be true at the same time, right? For many women, GLP-1s really do work. The appetite does quiet. The cravings do shrink. The scale does finally move after years of struggle, frustration, fear that this is just how I'm going to be forever, right? But here's what often gets left out of the conversation. Here is what gets left out of the conversation is that weight loss from GLP-1s is only part of the story. It's only a part of the story, because while the physical changes can be dramatic, the emotional patterns underneath, they do not just vanish. Okay? I say this all the time. There's the healing journey and the weight loss journey. Okay, the weight loss journey, that can be hacked by GLP-1s. The healing journey, that cannot be hacked by GLP-1s and will eventually come to the surface. Okay, I can't tell you how many women I've spoken with who say, I finally feel in control of my appetite, but I'm still having this urgency come up when I'm stressed. I'm still kind of yearning for food, strangely. Okay, I'm still almost eating. I'm still starting to eat even when I'm stressed, right? I'm still doing the behavior of eating. I'm still going to the cabinet. I'm still opening the bag of chips. I'm still having a chip, right? I'm still doing the behavior. I still feel guilty about it. I still don't trust myself. Okay, these are the more nuanced, more emotional goals that we have, right? Trusting ourselves, feeling freedom around eating, right? These are the more emotional goals that weight loss cannot, and weight loss from GLP-1s cannot give us. And this is the gap that I'm going to explore today, the space between the physical results and the emotional freedom. Because if you don't close that gap, the results, the weight loss results that you get from GLP-1, they won't last. And worse, you will feel empty, unfulfilled. You could even feel worse. As a thinner person, if you don't close this gap. So let's start here. Okay, GLP-1s help to regulate appetite. That's the physical side. But what it doesn't touch are the emotional triggers. The anxiety, the stress, the boredom, the loneliness, the perfectionism, the people-pleasing, the actual emotional triggers that drive eating even when physical hunger is not present. And I call this the borrowed willpower effect, okay? So when you're on GLP-1s, it can feel like the medication is carrying the discipline for you. And it can feel unreal, right? It's like, I don't have to do any heavy lifting. I don't have to struggle with the negotiation in my brain because it just isn't there anymore, right? The medication is doing it for you. Hunger is quiet. So willpower feels like second nature. But here's the danger. If you never build the self-trust underneath, right? If you never go through the process of building the self-trust underneath, you might secretly believe that the results belong to the drug and not to you. This is a subconscious belief or even a conscious belief that you might have, and that the truth is many people who are on GLP1s have, whether they have gotten to that place in their journey with GLP1s or not. There is that voice somewhere in the back there that's saying to you, this is the drug, not me. And honestly, it's true. It is true. I once worked with a client, okay, let's call her Anna, who lost between 30 and 40 pounds on GLP-1. Okay, she was getting compliments everywhere she went from coworkers, family, even like people on the street, people that didn't know her, strangers, right? But one day we were talking in one of our calls and she admitted, I feel like I'm taking the elevator to the top instead of climbing the stairs and like getting the strength, which is true, right? And she's like, what happens if I get off? Like, what if the weight comes back? And so even though she was thinner, the fear, right? Because the lack of empowerment, of self-esteem around how she got the results made her feel powerless, right? It made her feel powerless. So even if she looked successful on the outside, inside, she really didn't feel empowered. And that's the cost of borrowed willpower. The results, they don't feel like they're yours because truthfully, you might be wearing the results and you might be the one taking those results into the world and actually embodying them in some way, but you didn't build them. Okay. And that's the struggle, right? And then there's the identity gap, right? Many women expect that once the weight comes off, they'll feel confident, they'll feel sexy, they'll feel free. But what is sometimes missing and what a lot of people don't realize, and I say women here, but honestly, I know a bunch of men that are on GLP-1 too. So this sort of relates to both men and women. What isn't always at the forefront is that your body and your identity don't always change at the same pace. Okay, you might step on the scale and see a new number. You might zip up your jeans that haven't been able to close in years, but inside, right? Inside, you might still feel like the person carrying a sense of unworthiness or shame or afraid of being seen, right? And, it's just because you have this image and this idea of these emotional feelings and these sense of self-worth and self-esteem that you're going to have when the weight is gone, that doesn't mean that that's going to happen, because very often times your body weight has very little to do with your sense of self-esteem and self-worth, right? It can have it can connect. They could be connected, but weight is not that powerful, right? Losing weight does not automatically give you confidence. Confidence is built through other ways. right? It's built through knowing yourself. It's built through having safety in your body, right? It's built through having rhythms and routines that you have cultivated through trial and error, that you know that in all areas of your life, you can count on yourself. You could bring yourself back to balance, right? You are the one that's driving the car. You're not a passenger in a car that's being driven, getting you to a destination. Right? Maria, another client that I had, her name isn't really Maria, but we're calling her Maria. She said it perfectly, right? She said, I see myself in pictures. I look different. I could tell that I'm smaller, I'm thinner. I look in the photo the way that I have always wanted to look in photos, but in my head, I'm still the same. It's like my body changed, but my head didn't get the memo. And what happens here is physical change without emotional integration creates dissonance. The body changes, but the nervous system, the mindset, the self-worth hasn't caught up. And that gap, right? That feeling of separation between what you look like and how you actually feel about yourself, that can be just as painful as the weight itself. So what does this actually look like in daily life, right? What does this look like? Because even if you're on GLP1s, even with a suppressed appetite, emotional triggers are still going to show up. So you're still going to feel after a long day that was emotionally exhausting or physically stressful, or there was some conflict, or there was, something that triggered your nervous system and there's a sense of edginess, you're still going to feel pulled towards the food, right? You're bored or something on a night, and you're still going to find yourself walking or thinking about food and maybe even walking to the kitchen, right? Walking to the pantry, wanting to pour yourself, that glass of wine. And again, I have no issues with wine or with snacking even, but it's going to come from a place of wanting to fill a need, an emotion. And even old self-worth stories, like we've been talking about, like I'm not enough, or I'm afraid that I'm going to lose the results, or and now, I'm a slave to medication for the rest of my life. What's going to happen? Right. And I hear this a lot with people on GLP1s now. Right. And a lot of the people and the women, like I said, it's mostly women right now, but that I work with, they say to me, like, I don't feel physically hungry anymore, but like after work or even after a date, I still find myself grazing. It's like I'm looking for something. I'm looking to fill some sort of hole, some sort of void, but I don't know what. Right? It's like, I don't know what. And that's the heart of this whole thing. That's the heart of emotional eating. That's the heart of what we do in the sober eating movement, in the sober eating method, because this is not about hunger. It's not even about weight. It's about filling space. It's about soothing pain. It's about finding relief. And GLP-1s, it doesn't touch that part of it at all. And this is also where the grief layer sneaks in, because food has a history with you. It's like any relationship. Every relationship has history. And your relationship with food has a history with you. And GLP-1 just kind of numbed that out for you, right? You don't have the same, your appetite is less, so your relationship with food is different. And even though that new relationship is giving you a physical result that you might be happy with, there's also sacrifices to that in your emotional self subconsciously, because food was the friend that you leaned on when you were lonely, right? It was the ritual that you had that softened your boredom, your stress at night. It maybe was the comfort that you turned to when you felt like no one saw you or no one heard you or no one understood you. So when GLP-1 takes away the appetite for it, because of its chemistry, because of its physiology, because of the medication's properties, you might feel sad. You might feel confused. You might even feel angry. Right? Clients have been telling me over the last 2 years, I've had clients on GLP-1s before it became more popular. They've said to me, like, I should be thrilled. Like, I'm wearing, a size 4. It's crazy, right? Like I'm wearing this size that I never thought my body could ever be in, but a part of me misses it. I miss what food gave me. And so if you don't acknowledge this part of it, if you can't name that grief, and if you're listening to this and you're on GLP-1s or you're thinking about it, I want to normalize this for you, honestly. I want you to listen to this and be like, wow, maybe I'm feeling these things. And I want you to name it as grief and let the grief be okay for you. And maybe you need support processing this gap that you're starting to see now. Because if you don't process it, it ends up turning into shame. It could turn into self-sabotage. It could become really dark really quickly. And that's what ends up driving the cycle. And that's what ends up creating chaos and imbalance in your body. And then there's the relationship part of it, right? The relationship mirror. Because weight loss doesn't just change you. When you get on GLP-1s and you lose 20, 30, 40, like however many pounds, it doesn't just change you, it changes how others start to see you. And it's not always in a good way. I've seen this as well. This happens. It's so human for this to happen, to be honest, because just humans are just so complex, where sometimes when other people are having, positive things happen in their lives, people the closest to them start to get insecure, right? Friends maybe start to grow distant. Coworkers make these kind of snarky comments, or just, anybody makes snarky comments, right? And sometimes people feel really exposed. They thought they were going to feel this, like they were going to become this alternate version of themselves that maybe they saw on TV. It was sort of like a parasocial relationship with themselves that they were hoping they'd become when the weight loss happens. But really, the work hasn't been done to upgrade the identity to be able to receive all this visibility. And it feels really dangerous. And it doesn't always feel free. It doesn't always feel like wow, this idea that you had about how your personality was all of a sudden going to change once you lost weight. Because weight loss doesn't change our personalities. And I think that that's an important thing to understand. Right? Weight loss could sometimes feel like vulnerability, especially when it comes really fast. It can feel really dangerous to us, to our nervous systems. Because if you have been somebody who's been carrying weight for so many years, and even if it's been painful, and even if it's been frustrating, and even if you've really wanted to change it and you've had this goal, it's important to remember that the extra weight, or even the ritual of eating itself, the emotional eating, right? We keep talking about it. It is a ritual. It is a relationship. It acted as armor. And without it, the world feels really sharp. It feels really sharp. because the weight and the eating softened the world for us, right? It created like this bubble, this protection, right? I've had multiple clients tell me that even though they've never gotten so many compliments in their lives, that it's weird to them because instead of enjoying it in the way that they thought they were going to, like just, wearing sexy clothes and just parading and just like feeling so secure and so unbothered and just like, just that idea that you have in your head, instead they felt exposed because they didn't know how to be. Their identity wasn't elevated. It wasn't integrated enough. Because you have to train up that identity. You have to build resilience for that identity. They didn't know how to be this visible without their weight or their food to hide behind. Okay. And I feel like it's really important to recognize that when you suppress your appetite and when you lose weight, oftentimes your emotional triggers and some of the deep-rooted beliefs about yourself and even parts of your personality that maybe you haven't even known about yourself become more obvious. And sometimes having that clarity is really confronting. Can be really confronting. And so it's really important that we close the gap and create an emotional alignment in our lives, especially if you are going to embark on a GLP-1 journey. Okay, so how do we do that? What do you do with all of this now that we've unpacked, the relationship mirror, the visibility paradox, the grief, the identity gap? What do we do? And so I first want to remind you that, and we've talked about this before, that emotional overeating, unwanted weight gain, usually weight that we've kept on for a really long time that we've wanted to release, isn't about food. It's about regulation. Okay, it's about wanting something predictable, reliable, and something that makes us feel good in the moment to regulate us. Even though we know that it doesn't do it long term, but something that's predictable and reliable. And that is often what food is. And so what GLP-1s can do, they can manage the quantity of food that you eat. And that's what it does, right? It's like, we talked about this before. You could still have the urge to want to use food on GLP-1s, but physiologically, you're not going to be able to eat as much. That's a true thing, right? It can manage quantity, but it can't regulate your nervous system. You're still going to feel the emotions. You might not feel them right away because it's the new relationship energy, right? You're going to be so excited. You're on GLP-1s. Your attention's going to go there. It's going to give you that new burst of, you're probably going to have some discipline. And the GLP-1 is just going to be like an accelerator. But that's because it's new, like any new diet. However, what GLP-1 does do is at the point in the new relationship diet energy, when you start to fall off, the GLP-1 is there to swoop in and take control because you cannot have as much food physiologically. But like I said, it cannot regulate your nervous system. It cannot create the new identity that you need to sustain weight loss results long term. So here are a few things that you can do to start building, right? Start building this emotional alignment. Okay, it's naming your emotions. And we did it before with the grief, but you want to start being able to have mindful check-ins with yourself even while you're on the GLP-1s, because that will help you to and you want to do this anyway, even if you're not on GLP-1s, obviously. But sometimes we think that because we're on GLP1s, we don't need to do this stuff. But based on everything we've talked about today, you might need to do it even more. So you want to have mindful check-ins, you want to pause, you want to attune to yourself, you want to connect with yourself, you want to know your motivations for eating, you want to understand what you're feeling. Okay. And then again, you want to just continue to, whether or not you journal, you're like a writing person who journals, but you want to continue to pay attention to, to when you're feeling attachments towards eating and food, even if you can't eat it physically because of the medication. Okay. You want to, of course, do nervous system resets, right? Which can be breath work, stretching. In my sober eating sequence, I have a lot of nervous system rewiring resets in a vault there. And so a lot of my clients like to use those very often. This helps to regulate your nervous system, ground you in the present moment, right? Whether that's, again, something that you listen to or something that you do, like take a walk. And the truth is, the goal isn't to not emotionally eat, right? The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to just be connected to what you really need so that you're the one in charge. You're the one in the driver's seat. Right? One client that I did a lot of work around this with made it a ritual that before she would grab a snack, she'd close her eyes and she would take 3 slow breaths wherever she was. Sometimes she still ate, right? And that was okay, but she also understood what was going on in her inner world, what emotions she was feeling, and it didn't spiral out of control. Right? Sometimes she realized that she just needed calm and she did something else, right? So it's awareness and clarity. That's what we're looking for. And then we want to reframe success. Just in this whole journey, like I said earlier, there's a healing journey and there's a weight loss journey. Okay, the scale is only one measure. It isn't the whole story. Okay, success is healing the root patterns, the reasons why you got to this place that you are looking to be on a GLP-1 for weight loss to begin with. Right? It's reconnecting to yourself. It's raising your level of self-worth, raising your self-value and your identity, creating a culture inside your nervous system and inside of your mind of self-belief that I deserve to feel good. I deserve to look good. And I know how to sustain that. I know how to sustain looking good. I know how to sustain feeling good. I know how to sustain getting compliments without feeling like I'm undeserving, right? Like you want to be able to sustain the life that you are creating for yourself. You want to be able to sustain the feeling of worth in the body that you are living in. And simply losing weight does not give you that. It doesn't. Okay, so how do we integrate this for long-term results? Okay, this is where everything comes together, right? Where you can celebrate the physical wins, you can feel proud of how far you've come. But if you want those results to last, emotional integration and closing the gap between the physical results and the emotional triggers is a non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable because without it, what you're going to get is the post-scale void, right? You hit the number you've dreamed of, and then life still feels like life. Life is still lifing, right? There's bills, arguments, conflict, people needing something from you, right? Like you're still you. And suddenly you're asking yourself, why don't I feel as different as I thought I would? Right? This is what we were saying before. People saying to me, I thought reaching my goal weight would feel like fireworks, but instead it felt quiet, and the quiet scared me, right? Because often the fireworks is an illusion that's going on in our brain while we're trying to get there. That is the only fireworks, is the illusion. And that's the danger. That's the danger, being in the fantasy of everything is going to change when that fantasy collapses because you haven't prepared your emotional self in this way. Old habits start to sneak in. And this is the danger of the void, right? The danger of the void creates that now what problem? Now what do I do? Now what? Because for years, weight loss was the project. It was the focus. It was the obsession. And once you hit that goal, the question becomes, who am I without this chase? Right? What do I do with all this mental space that dieting used to fill, that fantasizing about being at this weight was filling? You know, what do I do with all the space that the self-punishment after a binge and then a, exciting, energy that's coming with the new plan cycle what do I do when that's not there anymore? And this is where integration matters, because integration isn't just about holding on tightly, right? It's about filling that space with meaning, with fulfillment, with new goals, right? Deeper connection, learning how to be in a steady, calm state without needing something to chase and hold on to all the time, right? And so, however you need to support yourself in that way, you can join the sober eating sequence, or you can join a program, you can work with a therapist, you can join a community group, whatever you want to do, right? You can join groups that measure success, not just with pounds, but with self-trust. And really, most importantly, you want to build anchors and rituals for yourself that as you apply those anchors and rituals, it just continues to put deposits into the bank of self-trust. Because the more that you can know what your anchors are, self-care anchors, know what you need, know how you need to eat and you need to move around the world to make yourself feel good and feel the best and most confident way. And you can only build that with trial and error and over time, right? That is what's going to carry you through. That's what's going to continue to reinforce this higher level sense of self and identity. So here's the takeaway. The truth is GLP1s can be an incredible tool. Okay, it can be. Okay, it can quiet the noise. It can regulate your appetite. It can give you a result that you may have thought was impossible. But it's truly, truly not the whole picture. Because without the emotional work, without the building of the new identity, you risk carrying the same old patterns like self-punishment, grief, shame, guilt, lack of knowing yourself, lack of feeling confident in your food choices, right? You're at the risk of carrying all that into a new body, because lasting transformation requires both the physical support and the emotional integration. And that's what creates a result that's sustainable, that you can actually keep. Because you and I both know this. The real goal, it's not just losing weight. It's not just losing weight. It's that idea that you imagined in your head about how you were going to feel when you lost the weight, right? It's learning to live in your body with peace, with trust, with confidence, with freedom, right? And it's knowing the results belong to you and that you know how to sustain them amidst a full, big life, right? The results belong to you. They don't belong to a pill. They don't belong to a number, and they don't belong to diet culture. Okay, so if you're walking this path, whether it's on a GLP-1 or whether it's not on a GLP-1, let the scale just be a part of the story. Okay, but let emotional freedom be the ending of the story. Because that's what makes change meaningful. That's what makes it durable, and that's what makes it truly yours. Okay, so thank you so much for listening to this today. I feel so impassioned about this topic. We're definitely going to be talking more about GLP-1. So if you do have any questions about this topic, feel free to leave us a comment on our YouTube channel under this video. You can also leave us a comment on Spotify. And if you haven't yet subscribed to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to us there. And you can also like and subscribe and leave us a nice review on Apple and Spotify. And if you do leave us a review, we are offering a monthly giveaway where I give a free one-on-one consultation to somebody who gives us a review there. Just send a screenshot of your review on Apple or on Spotify to podcast@bewellbyak.com, or you can send a DM to @bewellbyak. And that is all I have for you today. So until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.